The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of blood sucking. So get ready, nerds, because we're going to be talking about the new vampire versus terrorist movie, Blood Red Sky.
Spoiler, jeez.
Whoa, man.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Salty Nerd Podcast. My name is Matthew Kadish, and I am filling in for Alex today because he had to take a trip to celebrate his marriage. What a selfish guy. Anyway, today we are going to be talking about
We would never do that.
Yeah, I know. What a loser. Jude, we're just going to stay home the rest of our lives if that's cool with you.
Take my wife
And
somewhere
just
nice.
podcast.
Yeah, just podcast.
Why would we want to take our spouses somewhere nice?
Exactly.
Like,
Doesn't he know we got a podcast to do?
I'm not going to talk crap.
Yeah. I'm a terrible host, so like I always hate it when Alex is gone.
I actually really like my wife, so I can't talk a lot of trash.
I like your wife too.
Yeah. I was gonna say we both like your wife.
She's a good cook.
Yeah,
So I keep her around.
She makes great potato salad.
She really does.
She really does. But speaking of great cooks, we're going to be talking about a movie where people are just feasting on each other's blood.
Yes.
So I guess that's a form of cooking.
It's salty.
Anyway, there is
high
a
iron
new
content.
Netflix movie that is a German production that was released, and it's called Blood Red Sky, and it's basically about vampires on an airplane fighting terrorists. That's the most succinct way I can describe this
Can you
movie.
not spoil it before I
Yeah.
synopsis?
Oh, well, okay. Sorry. Great minds think alike, I guess.
I think
But
you should let her synopsis this thing.
yeah, we're going to get to the synopsis in a minute. But before we started, I wanted to welcome my great panel of salty nerds, starting with Matt Vader 74. Is the alcohol starting to kick in, my friend?
Goddamn right. Dude.
And
Today it's a sugar-free Red Bull in Absolute.
ooh, fancy.
I wouldn't let him have the Tito's until he
I know. It's like I
polishes off the Absolute.
I bring a gallon of Tito's over here. She goes, "You got to get rid of this Absolute stuff."
I don't drink that shit.
All right, so Jude, the ambassador of estrogen, how you
Hello.
doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Are you excited to talk about this movie?
I really am.
Oh, that's
Vampires.
good. Vampires. Yes, the other side of the table is big into
We
vampires.
Yeah.
love our vampires.
We do. We love our bloodsuckers.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so before we start talking about this movie, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from some sponsors, and we'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Salty Nerd Podcast. Real quick, if you want to help support the podcast, head on over to saltynerdclub.com. Over there, you can join our Patreon page and basically help support the podcast by becoming a member. And you get all types of cool perks. You get behind-the-scenes videos, you get behind-the-scenes photos. We send out some show notes occasionally, and you get access to a Patreon-only part of our Discord. So get a lot of benefits, and you help support the show. We're looking to get 100 patrons so that Matt Vader can quit his job, do the podcast full time. So if you want to help us reach that goal, head on over to saltynerdclub.com. We'd really appreciate it.
That would be great.
Yeah, wouldn't it? All right, so Jude, take it away. What is Blood Red Sky?
2021 Blood Red Sky, rated TVMA with a runtime of 2 hours, 1 minute. Elias and his mom just want to get to America so that doctors there can treat her rare blood disease. Unfortunately for the terrorists on board the flight, that blood disease is vampirism. When they take over the flight and shoot her, her bloodlust goes into overdrive. She sheds her wig and boring human teeth and takes a bite out of life, literally. She feeds on some dogs in the cargo hold for a little nosh, but can't resist when a delicious-looking terrorist is basically begging for it. And listen, we've all been in the heat of the moment and thought, that seems like a good idea, only to realize later, maybe I shouldn't have eaten that guy. Yada, yada, yada. The terrorists are now vampires too, and they were going to kill everybody on the plane anyway, so discuss.
All right. So I know Matt was just like, but I love how this is not your normal vampire movie.
Same.
They take like the whole Nosferatu
Yeah.
thing and they flip it on its head. They turn it into some kind of weird kind of blood disease and they go crazy with it.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
And the vampire
Alright.
that she turned into was very like 28 Days of Night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
It's
creepy,
just-
not attractive vampires that we've gotten in the last
Not
few years.
sparkly.
No, not even like
This-
charismatic or
no.
charming. They're monsters.
They're monsters.
And I love a fucking
Yeah.
vampire monster.
Yeah, I really like this movie.
Me too.
It was a lot of fun.
I could watch
And
this again.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
want to see more.
Yeah.
I want to know. I want to see a vampire. I want to see the train version. Let's this get her stuck on a train or something.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna do all the mass transit.
Like Train to Busan, only vampires.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like I know Matt was like totally ready to go, and I just like completely cock blocked him and said, "Here we go." But there's this movie's fun. I'm so glad we watched this movie because it's. I don't think this is one of those movies that a lot of people out there are watching, and you should. If you're a fan of horror movies, vampire movies, action movies, whatever, man, this thing is it's there. Well, it's a little weird for American audiences because there's some dubbing going on, and it is a German movie. But man, I don't know what the budget was with this or anything, but I was into this.
Yeah.
It was a cool movie.
Kata showed us the trailer for it. We did a trailer reaction for it. And ever since then, I've been like, when is this movie coming out?
Yeah, I remember we did the trailer reaction to this and we're like, holy shit, what is this thing?
Terrorists and vampires.
I know, right?
Oh, shit. That gave me everything I wanted.
Yeah, this side of the table, we're in, Matt.
Yeah.
We are totally in.
Did you like this movie, Matt?
I liked it up to a point. I felt like the main character, Nadia,
vampire chick. It doesn't matter what her name is.
I felt like she was a really terrible vampire.
Well, she was sympathetic.
She was trying to be a mom. Child. She didn't want to be a vampire.
It was tragic. She was a tragic character.
She was fighting being a vampire.
I agree with all of you, but at a certain
ganging up on Kate.
I know, right?
at a certain point, she kind of like realizes, okay, I'm the only one who can stop these terrorists, and she does a very terrible job.
Yes.
Well, she'd never been in a terrorist plane situation before.
No, I get it, but as a film goer, I'm kind of like, I want my main character to have a little bit of competency. But it was because of her that like the whole thing just like went completely off the rails.
Yeah.
So this was a German production, as Vader said. The budget for it was 15 million euro. Which is like 100 million American, I guess.
That much?
No. I'd say it's probably closer to like 20 million.
I have no idea what the exchange rate is.
We'll look it up.
So.
But this is one of those movies where it was a German language film, but they had American actors in it. When the American actors were speaking, they were speaking American or English, I should say. So like it's one of those weird movies where sometimes like people are being overdubbed and other times people are just speaking regularly. And it
didn't bother me though.
Yeah.
Okay, budget was 17.7 million.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So this movie, the concept for it's really cool. But there were certain things when I was watching it that made me really kind of like stop and wonder, like I wish there was a little bit more setup. So throughout the movie, we're seeing flashbacks of how she became a vampire. Right. Which also explains like she had the baby when she was still human. So like the son's actually hers. He's not infected with anything. But
you know of.
But, her whole kind of motivation is that she doesn't want to hurt him. So she's trying to get to America to see like a blood specialist to, kind of get this thing handled. But in the meantime, she has this medicine that she's taking that kind of keeps her human. And she got it from the vampire the vampire family that basically infected her with this thing. And I'm just wondering, like, what is that medicine and where did they get it and how does it work? So there's like a lot of weird stuff in this movie that I wished had just been set up better. Right. But another part of this movie is that you have an actor named Dominic Purcell who plays like the lead terrorist.
Was he the lead terrorist or the psychopath?
He was the lead terrorist. He was the guy with the shaved head. And he's a lot of people might recognize him from Prison Break and Legends of Tomorrow and stuff like that. He's kind of like a well-known actor. In fact, he played Dracula in the third Blade movie. Okay. So he's played a vampire before. And it's kind of one of those funny things where basically like he dies really early on in the movie. And it's the first time we see like when the vampire kills someone, how fast a vampire can or a human can become a vampire.
Well, that was the thing that I thought was interesting about this movie is they kind of they turned this kind of vampire into almost like a zombie, kind of like a Walking Dead kind of thing. If you get bit by the vampire, you're going to turn into a vampire. You know what I mean? Whereas like other vampire tropes are like, okay, well you have to drain all their blood, and then you have to drink their blood, and then you have to lie in a coffin with them. You know, there's true blood vampires. There's normal. You know, I really kind of enjoyed this whole. Yeah. This is a disease that turns you into a Nosferatu kind of animalistic, crazy ass blood sucking vampire.
I get that, and I can respect it, but I was kind of thrown by the inconsistency in the virus, because she's a character who, you know, got infected by a vampire, but she was able to retain her humanity for like a really long time. I think it was through the help of that, you know, that serum that she was taking, but it was also something where if she didn't drink human blood, if she was drinking the blood of animals or something like that, she wasn't like, she could control her urges. So like, I was wondering, like, I just wanted a little bit more explanation. Like, is it if you drink human blood, it accelerates the virus?
I feel
you know that, I mean, there were situations where like people get bit and they would instantly turn into like a raving vampire, whereas like she had the disease for months and she was, you know, still retaining
at least
like her
days.
humanity. Yeah. So I mean, like years, because like her kid was a baby when she got infected.
Right, but I'm saying like she got infected and at least days go by before she even goes back and meets that other vampire and gets the serum.
Yeah. So like I was just kind of thrown by the inconsistency on it, because like there's that one guy who gets bit and she chops off his hand to save him. And so like it's like, well,
those are Walking Dead rules.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the thing is like, well, you know, that would have entered his bloodstream instantly. Like chopping off the hand wouldn't have done anything.
I think that's a completely understandable critique.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I get
also,
it.
I didn't care. I really
liked it. I didn't either. I didn't care.
I also found the terrorist's evil plan to be kind of iffy, because like I didn't quite know. So like they hijacked this plane, and it's kind of like they take the passengers on the plane who are Arabs, basically, or Middle Eastern, and they're going to use them as scapegoats to kind of pin the hijacking of the plane on. And then they're going to jump out of the plane and get picked up. And it's just like, what's their end game? How are they going to get paid?
They're getting paid for something, and I wasn't sure what it was.
Look, man, it's just stuff that happens along the way to the whole plane getting turned into vampires.
But like, so like there's this whole thing where, you know, the co-pilot was in with the terrorist, and they're in the cargo bay, and they're getting ready to jump out of the plane to meet up with their rendezvous, who's going to pick them up, and the plane's going to kind of go on its way. And then they hear that, you know, that someone's in the cockpit, and they're like, oh, we shouldn't jump. We should go take care of this. And it's just kind of like, well, I mean, you guys were free and clear. Your plan was working.
But they needed the plane to go down. And
did they? Because it wasn't clear. Like, did they just need it to fly?
The plane turned around, so they didn't get to their coordinates.
Oh, that's the thing. If they jumped out, they weren't going to make it to their rendezvous.
No, what happened was, so the guy who was in the cockpit that was going to be flying the plane, autopilot was still engaged. He didn't know how to turn the plane around. And the woman kept being like, or Nadja kept saying like, turn the plane around because I need to get to this blood specialist. And he's like, I don't know how. And so like at the time that they went back up to assault the cockpit, the plane was still on course. And it wasn't until later that the plane had turned. But the weird thing is like the plane never turned around, because at the beginning of the movie, when they landed in I think it was Scotland, might have been close to London, but it was the Graham McTavish, you know, like scene where the movie opens up with this plane landing, and
Dougal Mackenzie from Outlander is there.
Yeah, and he's basically coordinating the you know, trying to figure out like, did terrorists take over the plane? What's going on? So the movie starts off like really strong and interesting, but that was their original course that the terrorist had set. So the plane never deviated from the course the terrorists had set. They just didn't jump out at the point where their rendezvous was going to pick them up. So I kept thinking like, why didn't they just jump? Like they didn't, there was no reason for them to go back up to that cockpit. So I don't know, like there were a lot of questions about the plot to me, but overall, at a certain point, the movie is just vampires versus terrorists.
Yeah, and I give horror movies a lot more leeway because of monsters. You already have to get on board with that. So things like that, it doesn't bother me.
I am going to pull an Alex and complain about the kid a little bit. because there's a scene where the kid, like after the terrorists take over, the
He
kid
gets his mother shot.
Well, the kid sees a map and he sees like a way to get down into the cargo hold. And he's like, Mom, if we can get here, we can be protected. Like the terrorists can't get us. And she's just like, no, just like keep your head down. Don't do anything. And so the kid hops out of his seat and runs to the back to get to this trap door. Doesn't tell his mom he's going to do this. He just does it. Nadja follows him to try to, keep him safe. And one of the crazy terrorists, this guy named 8-Ball.
I hate that guy.
Yeah. Well, I think you were supposed to. He sees this happen and he just straight up kills Nadja. He just like shoots her in the gut. And the kid is just like, Mom, oh my God. And I was like, you stupid fucking kid. Like, like you were the cause of this.
I think I would be with Salty on this one. I did not like the kid. The kid was just used as a way to
He's motivation for her through the whole movie.
Move the story along. I especially didn't like his relationship with him and Fareed, the Middle Eastern guy, because they made it feel like these guys were like in the end they were inseparable and they couldn't like live without each other. Yeah,
that relationship happened fast.
But there was no basis for that relationship. It's like, I need you to take care of my kid. Well, who was he? Who was he?
Yeah, they met briefly at the airport
5 minutes ago.
They bonded over bouncing a ball around.
And it's like you want this dude to raise your child that you met 5 minutes ago.
I mean, Pickens were slim.
We're
on a flight.
It was ridiculous. And then in the whole end scene where he's, after the planes landed and everything, and he's running across the airport, Fareed, oh my God, Fareed. It's like, come on. That was stupid, and I felt like they kind of needed just an excuse to get the kid to where he could see his mom at the end.
Yeah.
Where we could see her completely succumb.
Vamped out.
Yeah. But the whole story with the mom, I felt was pretty good. We saw her go from this loving mom with a problem to this completely vamped out person who couldn't control herself any longer. And the whole movie, you saw her losing more and more of herself,
of her humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. And
in the beginning of the movie, she's already hanging on by a thread. Oh, yeah. And she's got to get to those doctors or she's going to lose it.
Right. It's just, I loved her character. I think what I really liked in this movie was the effects. These things look like vampires.
Yes.
They made her look like what in my head, what a Nosferatu type vampire looks like. It's like, it's just, it was weird how they just went full monster with these things.
Speaking of monsters, perhaps the greatest monster of them all, the human monster.
Yes.
Well,
Let's talk about 8-Ball for a minute.
Okay.
Is he that's the psycho?
He's the psycho. Right? Okay. Yeah. I had a problem. This is my only real complaint about the movie is the amount of gunfire on a flight.
Yeah. Yeah, like they're just
playing it real fast and loose, bud.
Yeah, they're just popping off bullets in in an airplane like it's nothing. And it's kind of funny because like at a certain point they do fire a bullet that causes the airplane to lose cabin pressure.
Yeah,
and all the masks fall down and they have to like lower the plane so like everyone doesn't die from oxygen deprivation and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of realism there. But the interesting thing about 8-Ball, who's played by an actor named Alexander Shear, this is the main bad guy of the show. And he's like one of the terrorists who's just like a complete psychopath.
He's a loose cannon.
Yeah. Yeah. And
even the other terrorists don't like him.
Yeah, he's like, give me that vampirism.
Yeah.
And I like it.
And so what's interesting is like he's the first to put together that like vampires are real. This lady's a vampire. And so
that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get me some of that.
Yeah. And,
I'm not gonna lie. I think I might be down.
I'm probably in.
Yeah. And so like when he realizes that there's like a vampire on the plane, he's like fascinated by it. And so like he actually is able to kind of pin her down and draw her blood out. And he's like, yeah, I think I might be into it, and at a certain point she traps him in a car. And in order to kind of like save himself, he injects himself with this blood. and he becomes like the first like infected vampire, and he's the one who starts spreading it to like all these other
everyone. Yeah. Oh, I love the way that she tries to kill him though.
Yeah, by fire.
Yeah.
In the car.
What does she pokes a hole in the windshield with something.
She's gonna stab that thing through his chest.
Yeah.
Through his heart.
But he locks himself in this car. So she just pokes a hole through the windshield and she pours like liquor or something in there and she lights a match and throws it. Oh my God, it was sick.
Yeah. And so because of 8-Ball converting into a vampire, he slowly starts turning other passengers into vampires. Yeah. And the more vampires there are, the more they start attacking each other, like all the other passengers, to the point where everyone on the plane becomes a vampire.
Yeah.
And the only safe place is in the cockpit. And I think it's the kid, it's Fareed.
That's it.
And,
I think that's it.
Well, there's this other guy who's flying the plane.
Okay.
And then there's Nadja, who's there to protect them. And it's basically chaos. Everyone knows that if this plane lands and these things get out, it's going to cause like a
worldwide devastation.
Yeah, it's a world ender.
It's a plague.
Yeah. And yet the kid can't communicate this to the people who pick him up once they're on the ground.
He's got PTSD.
You're crazy, kid. Vampires, get out of here. What are you talking about?
So like this movie, there's a lot of good parts to it, but there's also a lot of parts where I was just like, I don't know if I'd buy it. But like you said, the vampire effects are really cool. I just wish that they had been a little bit more kind of like explanatory about like what the rules are. But this does feel like something that, you could have like a sequel to it, even if you don't have any of the original characters back, because they did kind of set up through the flashbacks that there are like vampires out there and they're trying to like, stay out of people's way because they don't want to spread this thing. So it was kind of interesting. Vader, did you have a favorite scene in this movie?
I like the scene where she went full vamp. I don't know why.
At the end?
No, kind of like
in the cargo hold.
And well, it was kind of like after she got shot.
Oh, okay.
And she like sucked all that dude's blood down, and it's just like, I think it's the scene in the trailer where she just like kind of throws her head back and she's just like all.
And her like human teeth fall out and her fangs drop down. Yeah. That was cool.
And it's like, oh, they ain't fucking around.
Shit's about to get real bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I like stuff like that. I like, it's like I don't really care about the full on action scenes at the end. I did like the scene where her son, she's completely lost at this point, and her and her son are both in the cargo hold, and the door's open. And there's that beam of light separating her and her son. I thought that was pretty strong stuff because she's trying to like get to her son, but she can't get to him through the sunlight. And he's just like over there on the other side of the sun going, oh my God, it was kind of a weird, kind of a deep scene, because, she didn't want to be doing that, but at the same time, she couldn't control herself.
Right.
It was kind of crazy. Yeah.
All right, Jude, what was your favorite part of this movie?
I disagree with you about Nadja. I just really enjoyed her character throughout the whole thing. Like, we got to see her as a human, and then what transpired for her to become a vampire. Like, she loses her husband and she's just got her newborn infant and she gets infected, and like her dealing with that when she first gets infected, and she's dealing with this bloodlust, and she's trying to figure out how to retain her humanity for her son. And then she like flash forward, her son's like 8 in this, and she's just trying to hang on to every shred of her humanity for her son throughout this whole thing. And like, spoiler, at the end, she completely loses all of her humanity throughout this movie, and her son is the one that has to kill her.
It was hard to watch, right?
Oh God, yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was just like, man, I felt bad for this lady going through this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we were supposed to feel.
Yeah. I don't know if it was necessarily like the best story I've ever seen, but it did its job in making me feel everything it was set out to make me feel.
There was some empathy there from
for
us
sure.
towards the character. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was kind of a tragic ending. So like, it was kind of like this tragedy. So Vader, how do you think this stacks up to other vampire movies?
I don't know. That's a hard question because it's not like really like any other vampire movie that
it depends on like what vampire world are you in, like what rules are you going by?
I mean, this is its own kind of thing. It's like I can't compare it to like Anne Rice books or or True Blood or anything like that. Those are completely different types of vampire tropes to me. I mean, I would, if I was going to be a vampire, I would live in the True Blood world personally.
Yeah, or the Buffy world.
But I'm not really. But this is its own thing. I don't know how to really answer your question, Matt, because these aren't nice, fun vampires that like to go out and I don't know, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, like I don't want to be is it 28 days a night or 30 days a night?
Yeah,
I think it's 30 days a night. I don't want to be one of those vampires.
I don't want to be
but I'll take some super speed and some super strength. Yeah.
Sure, for sure. I'll live forever and drink some blood once in a while. But these guys, they turn into monsters, and it's this is not a fun thing.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I did. I liked it a lot.
I really dug it.
So Jude, how do you think this compares to like other vampire movies?
Well, like I was, I'm sorry, I kept just like hype manning while Vader was talking. I think it depends on what rules you're going by. So like compare it to
Buffy.
No, I will never. But like compare it to other like standalone movies. Like, I mean, there's a trillion different movies to compare it to, and I just don't want to do that. This is a new vampire movie, and I feel like I'm so jazzed about it because I feel like I've seen every trope. Mm-hmm. And this was something new and different that got me excited. And I love monster movies. I love vampire movies. And it's hard to get me that excited about a new vampire movie because I feel like I've seen everything. This was different and this was new and I loved it. I thought it was great. I'd watch it again.
That's exactly how
I'll play it for like scary movie night in October.
Yeah, this movie, it kind of made me think of another kind of like terrorist airplane movie, which is kind of like a
Snakes on a Plane.
No. It's called Executive Decision, starring Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal, and it's actually a surprisingly good movie. It's one of my kind of like guilty pleasures, but it's kind of like the same premise where terrorists take over a plane and there's someone on the plane that needs to stop the terrorists. Basically, Die Hard in plane, but the twist on this was that the person stopping them is a vampire. And I can appreciate the originality of the concept. I think that the German production kind of gives something to this. I think if this were an American production, it wouldn't have been as intriguing because there's just something about like the German cinema and European cinema. And, we recently reviewed a Korean movie and stuff like that, where foreign films, like they bring like a different kind of aesthetic and point of view to some of this kind of like tried and true material, where I feel like if this was something that Hollywood spit out, it wouldn't have been nearly as interesting.
Yeah, it would have just followed the formula.
Yeah. All right, so let's go around the table, give it final thoughts and a review. Vader, what do you think of Blood Red Sky?
I highly recommend people check this movie out. Go take 2 hours of your life, sit in front of Netflix and enjoy a fun little vampire jaunt flying through the sky. Yeah, it was fun, man. I had a good time with this. It was different. It's a new spin on vampire movies. Don't worry about the English dubbing. It's because it's not really that big of a deal. Just have fun with this thing. I give this, if I was going to grade this thing, 3.5 stars. I think that's probably about where I'd put it. 3.5. Yeah, good stuff. All
right, Jude, what are your final thoughts and ratings for
I'm
this?
right exactly on the same page with you, Vader. I loved it. I thought it was great. It's different. It's fun. I could watch it again. I highly recommend it. Is it a 5-star movie? No, but it's a solid 3.5 terrorist vampires out of 5.
All right, I'm not as high on this movie as you two seem to be. I thought it was a decent enough film. A little bit too long. I think like 2 hours was...
It's 2 hours and 1 minute. I will let that extra minute slide because I hate movies over 2 hours.
I think this could have easily been an 1.5 hour long movie and it still would have been fine. The actors in this movie are all very good. A lot of foreign actors. The writing was decent. Again, like there were a few things where I was kind of like scratching my head and it's like, I wish they'd have set that up better or explained why they were doing this. But overall, I enjoyed watching the movie. I'd give it a solid 3 stars. Like I don't think it's a bad movie, but I'm not as like, oh my God, as you guys are.
Well, we love our monsters.
Well, we're oh my God 3.5.
Yeah.
We're not oh my God 4.5, 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I might watch this
like
movie.
We really liked it, but we're keeping it cool.
I think if I had to watch this movie, but by the time like the fourth watch, I'm going to be kind of over it. You know what I mean?
Maybe. It depends on how much time in between.
Yeah, I suppose.
Are you
so.
a vampire and you're 300 years old now and you're watching it again after 100 years? You probably still like it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, do you think lovers of vampires will like this movie more than
I
action
do,
because
I'm a lover of vampires.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but,
I love my vampires.
But if you're like a diehard, like if you're more into the action movies than the vampires.
I think that this movie brings couples together because if you are a girl who likes vampires like me and you're with a guy who likes action movies, you're going to like this movie. You can sit and watch this together.
I like this because it wasn't your normal Count Dracula type vampire.
Yeah. This is a great example of a good date night movie for me.
Yeah. I agree.
All right, guys, that was our discussion of Blood Red Sky. As you can see, we all recommended it, and you should definitely check it out. It's free on Netflix. And like we all said, the German dubbing isn't really much of an issue. Like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't bothered. I'm usually bothered by dubbing. But
the dubbing with the kid wasn't great.
Yeah.
But whatever.
It didn't take me out of it.
It doesn't ruin the movie, is what I'm saying.
Watch it with subtitles. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't read movies.
I don't read movies, but
anyway, guys, that was our discussion. Be sure to check this movie out. It's definitely worth a watch. Vader, where can they find you on the socials?
You can find me at MattVader74 on the Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Getter. What else am I on? TikTok. Yeah. Also on this very channel on Saturday mornings, I play some games for a few hours. Hang out and talk with people. Yeah, it's fun.
Jude, where can they find you?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram, Twitter, and on TikTok.
All right. And you can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter and Getter. And you can also go to kadishbooks.com to check out my Amazon page. You can see some of my books there. And as always, we at the Salty Nerds really appreciate you taking the time to watch our little programs. If you can give us a thumbs up and like this video, we really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please be sure to give us a review. Those things really help us out. Anyway, guys, this is Matthew Kadish, and stay salty, my friends.